Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Welcome. Thank you for being here. Um, I'm Sylvain, your unclouder-upper Buddhist practice. This Go Show is titled On Filial and Unfilial Conduct. And this is a word that gets that we don't use a lot anymore in society, Western society, any society worldwide. It's not something we talk about much anymore. Used to be something much more familiar to us because it's generally associated with structures of family. And to those of you who are born into the 21st century, you may never even heard this word. And the whole idea or the concept you hear from us old fogies, when I was a kid, we talk about the structure of family and how all of the kids in a family would revere their grandparent or their great grandparent. The older somebody was, the elders of a tribe, the elders of a society, would, just by virtue of having lasted as long as they had, be respected for the knowledge, the life knowledge that they would have. And so a young person would, and this goes back a ways, I realize, but in the history of mankind, ever since we became communal and stopped being nomadic and started, especially from agrarian times, when we started to grow roots in a location and build our civilizations from tribal to, full-on communities and so forth to today, the elderly of the tribe or of the community, certainly within a family, would be advisors. We would, a young person, whether a teenager or somebody in their 20s or even 30s, and so on through life, as decisions changed, who to mate with, how to approach someone from the opposite sex, what was the right behavior to have in certain situations, you would go, if not to your parent, you might go over their heads and go to a grandparent or a great grandparent or the elder of the community. But always there was respect for the elder. And if you superseded your parents and it was inappropriate for the question you had, that grandparent or that elder might sternly rebuke you and say, you need to start with your parents, young person. You need to ask your mother or your father this kind of a question. And if you don't get satisfaction there, then you can come to me. And they might come to the house so that they would straighten out the parents as well as the question from the youth. This kind of system of education, social education, norms, and not just norms, but traditions, that kind of thing. We live now in a world where that's broken down so far that it exists in very few places. In pockets of cultures where they try to keep it alive, it may still exist. But it's actually a much larger subject than that. And when Nichiren talks about filial and unfilial conduct, in terms of Buddhism, he treats Shakyamuni's teachings, Buddhism in its entirety, as very familial, like family, so that you can have filial or unfilial conduct related to the teachings of Buddhism, the teachings of Shakyamuni. You'll see that the same verbiage is used. The sovereign or parent or teacher is looked at as a familial relationship. So much so that when Nichiren speaks about Buddhahood or Bodhisattva, but certainly about Shakyamuni Buddha, he consistently refers to Shakyamuni as the parent of, the teacher of, the sovereign of Jampudvipa, the entire world, of all of he's our parent. And he extrapolates that from when you practice Buddhism and you become a student of the Lotus Sutra, you accept the responsibility of being the parent, teacher, sovereign to others whom you assist in their path to Buddhahood. This is the Bodhisattva practice, right? So the concept of filial, unfilial is much broader in that sense. And there's a certain change of attitude that we experience when we realize that when we're teaching ourselves, when we're chanting Namo Myoho Renge Kyo and we're reciting Gongyo in different chapters of the Lotus Sutra, and we do our little study and research and so forth, that we are not simply educating ourselves for our own benefit. Certainly we are. But attached to that, like a train, that responsibility of nurturing others in the insights that we ourselves gain through our practice and study. That responsibility is always there. So much so that when somebody walks up to you, and I've had it happen in shopping in a store, and have somebody come up to me and ask me something related to Buddhism, specifically about Lotus Sutra Buddhism, I cannot, should not, would not say to that person, well, there's plenty of information online, or you can get yourself a book and so forth. I'm not the person you should talk to. That would be unfilial conduct, because I'm not respecting the fact that by virtue of my practice, I am accepting responsibility for this relationship, parent, teacher, and sovereign. In the same way, I would add that if you are the son of or a daughter, that if somebody were to ask you about your family relations or something to that in relation to your family, you wouldn't simply say, go find words about my family somewhere else. I don't know anything about it. Of course not, right? I know, if people ask you about your family today, they're suspicious to begin with. But I'm trying to make the point that your relationship to Buddhism is the same as your relationship to family. You would not deny your parent, in ideally circumstances, right? Certainly you wouldn't deny your responsibility as a parent, teacher, sovereign, or child of a parent, teacher, sovereign like Shakyamuni, Nichiren, the Buddhist method. It is, in every sense, the parent of our Buddha. As much as we are also a part of and a member of that familial awakening. So we inherit that responsibility. So, haven't even read it yet, but I'm sure, knowing that, what Nichiren says in this letter will probably resonate more clearly. Okay? So here we go. I've received your gift of a sack of rice sent in donation for a memorial service on the anniversary of Ueno's passing. I will offer it in the presence of the Buddha and recite the verse section of the lifespan chapter of the Lotus Sutra. So there's a big clue about several things in that first paragraph. First of all, as usual, he begins with a thank you. This was written at Minobu to Nanjo Tokumitsu, also known as Ueno, right, because of the area he's from. And this was a request that Nichiren offer memorial prayers on the anniversary of the death of his father, Nanjo Hyoi Shichiro. So Tokumitsu's father died on the 8th day of the 3rd month, the same date that this letter was written, in 1265. In this letter, now, he wrote this letter in 1280, so that's kind of confusing there. At any rate, it was not uncommon, still not uncommon today, that if you want your great teacher to offer meditations to Myoho Renge Kyo, the universal Buddha law, out of respect and filial conduct, you're going to do a meditation and recitation in memory of your loved one, your parent, your sovereign. And so you send gifts, offerings to the votary of the Lotus Sutra that taught you, your teacher, your immediate teacher. And you ask respectfully if, in exchange for these gifts to the votary, your gifts actually, as I've explained many times, are to Myoho Renge Kyo in the personage of your teacher. And you ask them to spend a little time considering your personal sovereign, your parent, your sibling, your whatever. But there's also a piece of information where Nichiren actually describes what this memorial consists of. So if you want to do a memorial for your deceased parent, sibling, grandparent, so on, relative, you could do this at home by reciting Gangyo, basically. You don't have to do a full Gangyo. The most important part of the Gangyo that relates to the deceased relatives is the lifespan chapter, the second and third part of Gangyo, right? Sections B and C. But certainly, if you'll recall the 5 meditations, the silent meditations at the end of the recitation of the Lotus Sutra chapters, one of them is specifically to the remembrance of deceased relatives. And so this is actually a prescription for that kind of a memorial service. You could perform it for yourself, you could perform it for your family, you could go to one of the people whom you're a parent, sovereign and teacher to, who's learning Buddhism through you, and go to their home and perform this ceremony, or invite them to your Butsudan, your mandala, and do the ceremony with them. So you see, Nichiren is teaching how to approach this kind of a situation. No doubt this will be the platform on which he builds his understanding, Buddhist understanding of filial conduct. So here we go. As for the meaning of filial piety, only by first knowing about unfilial behavior can we know what it means to be filial. Yeah, a lot of times it's easier to describe what something isn't in order to describe what it is. As an example of unfilial conduct, a person called Yu Ming once struck his father, and as a result was felled by a bolt of lightning. Expedient means, right? Because he cursed his mother, a person called Pan Fu was attacked and devoured by a poisonous snake. King Ajatashatru killed his father, and as a result, contracted white leprosy. And because he killed one of his parents, King Virudaka was trapped in a burning boat on a river and fell alive into the hell of incessant suffering. In no case have such things befallen someone for killing an unrelated person. By considering the results of unfilial conduct, we can understand how great the benefit of filial conduct must be. Now, he drops this note in here that if you killed somebody that's you're unrelated to, you won't fall in. He's not saying you won't fall into the hell of incessant suffering. What he's saying is there's no stories about consequences because, strictly speaking, that's not unfilial conduct. Remember, he lives in the age of samurai. Killing is a daily occurrence. So it's just par for the course, right? What we would call the new normal. Let's hope it's never the new normal, but just to illustrate, right? There are plenty of prohibitions about killing everything, let alone another human being. But in the context that Nichiren is discussing filial conduct, there are no consequences for killing unrelated lives. But believe me, there are plenty of consequences, so don't read that incorrectly. I might fault the translation here, but be that as it may, I hope that's clear. The more than 3,000 volumes of non-Buddhist scriptures concern no other matters. They teach nothing but filial conduct toward one's father and mother. Yeah, that's true. If you read Confucianism or other forms, other religions, or I shouldn't say other, but religions in general, or like Confucianism or Taoism, there's a tremendous amount of information in there about this implied respect and hierarchy of knowledge and filial devotion, piety paid to elders, right? It's just part of the society, let alone the rules of society. Yet, though with these teachings one may fulfill one's duties to one's parents in the present life, one will be unable to help them in their life to come, or in their future. The debt of gratitude owed to one's father and mother is as vast as the ocean. If one cares for them while they are alive, but does nothing to help them in their next life, it will be like a mere drop of water. So, this is an interesting, again, this device is so confusing, and I have to fault the translations here. I'm no scholar of languages and so forth, so I can't offer you a clarify or an optional reading of that. Basically, there's two ways to interpret this line of reasoning. When you're growing up, when you're a baby, when you're a young person, when you're a teenager, when you're a young adult, it takes a tremendous amount of time to socialize and make independent a human being. It's amazing. You know, we can watch the birth of ducks and birds and animals, of all insects and so forth, and you can see, well, with insects, sometimes their entire lifespan is 24 hours. But as far as all of the species on the planet, there's always a birth followed by an intense training that occurs in a pretty short amount of time, certainly less than a year, often less than a week. And that at that point, that offspring becomes quite independent. And within a year, they're learning how to, a lion cub, within a year, they've learned how to get their own food and feed themselves, right? Humans, we take years upon years upon years teenagers, and I might argue sometimes fully adult, before we figure out how to be self-subsisting. It takes an amazing amount of time. A human being is really a piece of work, not to be cliche. So my point is that during that whole time period, you are very much within the womb, if you will, of your parents. You can't survive age 5. You can't survive without mom and dad. Or one of them, at least. Or somebody in their stead. An older brother or sister. You are not ready to simply exist on your own. And some would argue you're not ready until you're into your 20s. Point being that this filial piety is something pretty easy to exemplify for several years growing up. And now, once you marry, or you couple, or you mate, or you move out and you go off on your own independently, that relationship, that immediate sense of nurturing, protection, teaching, knowledge, all of that is pretty much severed. We don't spend a lot of time, unless some event occurs. Maybe you have your own offspring, and for that your parents might be involved. Or not these days, right? And more these days, less and less of us are aware of who our grandparents even are, if we ever meet them. We might meet them when we're young, but it doesn't take long before we don't even know they exist. Certainly great-grandparents, right? On and on. So there's plenty of life left in these people, their future life, their evolution over time continues even without your interaction. So your filial piety should also extend to them. It should be your effort that maintains their influence in your life, but it often doesn't anymore, right? So there's that component that he's talking about here. There's also the other component that says that when they pass, as in this case, his father's passed away, as I've discussed before, karmically, within Nanjo Tokumitsu, is karmic energy he shares with his father. It's a slice, a component of his own, as he carries a slice and component of his mother's. Nanjo Tokumitsu is his own force, his own motive force. His inertia is his, but it contains energy from his father and his mother. That is the birth process, all three, right? So his father lives on within his own reality. He may in fact rely mentally on many aspects learned and inculcated from his father, right? Because of all those years of training in order to become independent, he has aspects of his father's life experience as well as his mother's life experience, albeit through his own understanding. So to honor and be filial to his father is also reflexive, because it pays homage to those aspects of himself that he continues to appreciate. And that is another life of sorts, right? So both are true here. But please do not go down the road of an afterlife. None of that exists in Buddhism. So again, if that's taken as a given, then you can understand how it liberates one to talk in this fashion, because there's just no reasonable thinking person that would think about a life after death. Follow? Let's continue. The more than 5,000 volumes of Buddhist scripture likewise concern nothing else. They simply set forth the merits of filial piety. However, though the thus come one's first 40 years and more of teachings may seem to be about filial conduct, he did not reveal in them the true teaching on this matter. Once again, there's provisional ways to think about this, as I have been explaining, and then there are the essential ways. Therefore, though they appear to fall within the realm of teachings on filial conduct, they are in fact unfilial, because they're incomplete, they're provisional. The Venerable Madhgalyayana rescued his mother from the suffering of the realm of hungry spirits, if you'll remember that story. However, he was only able to lead her to the worlds of human and heavenly beings, right? We're talking about the 10 worlds here. So he got her out of hell and Chigaku. Don't remember my Japanese labels, but a place of rage and tumult and Great Depression and so forth. He raised her life condition to that of humanity, and what did he say here? And human and heavenly beings. So that's the level of humanity, or nin, tranquility, depending on which version of the 10 worlds you read, which is it's still part of the 6 lower worlds, but it's certainly above hell, hunger, animality, anger, right? So he got her out of the hungry spirits. However, is only able to lead her to the realm, and could not enable her to enter the path of attaining Buddhahood, which would have been not only learning and realization, but bodhisattva, which puts you on the bodhisattva way of attaining the Buddha way. The two are very closely intertwined, just as being human and enlightening our Buddha mind are intertwined, right? The thus come one Shakyamuni, at age 30, expounded a teaching to his father, King Suddhodana, enabling him to reach the 4th and highest level of attainment, and at the age of 38, he enabled his mother, Lady Maya, to attain the stage of Arhat, which in Hinayana, early teachings of Buddhism, are the highest stage of those early lesser vehicle teachings. Yet, while such deeds may resemble filial conduct, the Buddha was in fact guilty of unfilial behavior. Why would he say that, do you think? For though he freed his parents from the 6 lower paths, he caused them to enter a path that would never lead to Buddhahood. This is like reducing a crown prince to the status of a commoner, or like marrying a princess to a man of lowly birth. Now, do you understand the comparison Nichiren is making here? In other words, unless you give somebody the keys to full, perfect enlightenment, immediate in this life, Myoho Renge Kyo, everything else you teach them certainly helps them on the path. But if you hold back those keys, you're betraying them. See, Nichiren is very strict here. You want to learn Hinayana Buddhism, or Theravada Buddhism, or Tripitaka Buddhism, go for it. More power to you. Just understand that as you're learning all of those sutras and teachings, they're provisional. They're only preparing you for right? I could teach you all about how to make a tire, how to make a wheel, how to make an axle. I could even build an engine with you. But if I never let you get into a car and experience driving a car, of what use are all those skills? Nothing. They're entertainment. They don't lead you to becoming a driver. Your own independent experience of all those things, right? And if I tell you that's all there is to it, I'm betraying you. This is the point Nichiren is saying. All of that is well and good as long as it's in service to this ultimate teaching, ability. If I don't teach this to you, even if it's all I try to teach to you, I'd be better off giving you keys, putting you behind the driver's seat and telling you to figure it out than to teach you all that other stuff. Right? For this reason, the Buddha said, quote, "If I used a lesser vehicle to convert even one person, I would be guilty of stinginess and greed. But such a thing would be impossible," end quote. Having given his parents a meal of boiled barley while begrudging them amrita, and having offered them unrefined spirits while denying them fine wine, the Buddha had become the most unfilial of persons. Like King Virudaka, he should have fallen alive into the great citadel of the hell of incessant suffering, and like King Ajatashatru, his body should have been afflicted with white leprosy. However, 42 years after he attained enlightenment, he expounded the Lotus Sutra, saying, quote, "Those disciples, though they have conceived an idea of extinction and entered into what they take to be nirvana, will in that other land seek the Buddha wisdom and will be able to hear this sutra," end quote. And when he talks about extinction, he talks about liberation from the attachments, from suffering, from attachments, desires, all of that earthly stuff. Extinction of that influence is what he's talking about, not extinction of our lives. Because Shakyamuni expounded the Lotus Sutra to repay the debt of gratitude he owed to his father and mother, many treasures Buddha who had come from the world of treasure purity praised him as a Buddha of true filial piety. And the Buddhas of the 10 directions assembled and declared him to be the most filial among all the Buddhas. Understanding again that these are life forces, giving persona to life forces. The many treasures Buddha is these life forces of beneficial condition, life condition, that appear, if you will, mentally once one makes those kinds of causes. It's our relationship with the life force that we negotiate, our earthly, mundane life force, right? Our Buddha mind, our Buddha life condition is an enlightenment, an awakening of our mortal, our physical being through our mental awareness, right? Just like when you experience great joy, you feel it throughout your body, but you feel it as a result of your mental experience, like Buddhahood. Considering matters in this light, we can see that people of Japan are unfilial. In a passage of the Nirvana Sutra, the Buddha taught that unfilial persons would be more numerous than the dust particles of the land. Thus, the sun and the moon, the 84,000 stars in the heaven, each grow enraged and glare down furiously at the country of Japan. It's a wonderful similes, right? This is what today's divination masters are reporting to the ruler as frequent disturbances in the heavens. And with strange happenings on earth occurring day after day, famine, fires, earthquakes, not unlike today, the country is like a small boat tossed about on a great sea. This is the reason why the children of Japan have lost their vitality and why the women are vomiting blood. I'm sure it was not a good time with the famines going on, droughts and so forth. You are the most filial person in all of Japan, he says to Nanjo Tokumitsu. What a reassuring statement. Brahma and Chakra will descend from heaven to serve you as left and right wings, and the deities of the earth in the four directions will support your feet, revering you as their father and mother. There is still much that I would like to say, but I will conclude here with my deep respect, Nichiren. So, Nanjo Tokumitsu has asked Nichiren, would you please conduct a small memorial service for my father who's passed away? Because he has deep respect for what he's gained from his father. And so Nichiren is in turn telling Nanjo, your respect for your father, you're offering to the votary of the Lotus Sutra as a dedication, a memorial for your passed away father and his life within you, is tremendously respect-worthy. And that's all this letter is really saying, is your conduct and your request to me is something I take very, very seriously and deeply. And you are rewarded for that by the life condition you will manifest because of that respect that you have for your elders. That's what this letter's about, very simply. But we use a lot of the teachings of the culture at the time, the conditions that they're living in, and always a reference to Shakyamuni's very words to bolster the feelings and the commitment that Nichiren is bestowing on Nanjo. So Nanjo Tokumitsu is getting the kind of support that he's asking for directly from Nichiren, right? And his practice, Yoho Rengekyo. So, interesting little lesson, something to remember when you might be struggling with the death of a parent or sibling, understanding that there's tremendous expansion and lifting of your life spirit if your attitude is not so much of a lament, but an honoring, a piety, if you will, for their experience in your life, your experience of their participation in your life, right? Always gratitude. Again, we come back to attitude, intent. It's the heart and soul, if you want to use the word soul in this way, the heart of the Lotus Sutra and our Buddhist practice. And with that, yep, under 40 minutes, yay. Thank you so much. Thank you to my patrons, all of those who support, new members. You guys are awesome. Members, it's just an easy word to use. We're all practicing on our own, but our Sangha is getting stronger every day. I guess I'll end with that. Take care of your health. Be kind. And I'll see you in the next one. Thanks. Bye-bye. Hey, thank you for being here. Did you know there's a third way you can help support this channel? And it won't cost you a cent. Yep. If you are not able to be a patron on Patreon or use the PayPal me at .com at Sifu Sylvain, because you don't have the financial fortune to help support this channel right now, you, as I say, always support this channel by watching, but you can also help us grow so that maybe one day we can get over 10,000 subscribers and YouTube will grace us with monetization. It's not a lot, but if you can make sure you're subscribed and share a video like a simple one, just go into the search criteria and type monk, and you'll have a video that'll come up that's been up for years about what is a monk. You know, it's called monk, who, how, where, something like that. That might be a great introduction to somebody who doesn't understand what a monk is to begin with. It's a tool. Use this channel as a tool to help you with your bodhisattva practice, and share a video to somebody who you think, oh, I know somebody who'll benefit from watching this. And in that way, you can help us grow. And that's a really good way to help your practice along as well. So just wanted to drop that in on you in case that's something that you might find useful. Take care of yourself again, and I'll see you soon. Bye.